So our session today is going to focus on timely and meaningful feedback in Canvas. We're going to talk about what feedback is, why do we give feedback, why is it important, and how we can provide feedback through tools that are built into Canvas. And my name is Deshara Jackson, and I am a principal learning consultant here at Instructure, which is the parent company of Canvas. And I'm really excited to have this session with you all this morning. So to start, I wanted to open it up with a question, and feel free to pop your answer in the chat. And the question just simply is, what are some words that you would use to describe meaningful or effective feedback? So when you think about feedback, what are some things that come to mind? What does that look like? And I'll get us started. So one of the things I think about when I think about meaningful or effective feedback is that it needs to be specific, right? I need to know exactly what are things that I did well and what are some areas for opportunities, as well as maybe some resources that I can be pointed to. Okay. Encouraging, great. Providing suggestions for improvement, wonderful. Guides improvement, absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, these are all really great words that I would think about for sure. As we're going through this session, just think about maybe your favorite class or your favorite training that you've ever taken and why that was so important to you. Was it the feedback they provided? Was it specific? So think about those types of things as we're going through. Yeah, asking to elaborate and providing examples. Exactly, that is a good point. It's one thing to just put a question mark next to students' work, but if we can say, these are some examples of how you can elaborate. Here's some resources, exactly. So the first thing we want to do when we're talking about effective feedback is just to define it. So feedback is not going to be just like advice or praise or evaluation. Feedback is more informational, and it lets you know how you're doing in an effort to reach the goal. Typically, the goal is going to be to get a great grade on a particular project or assignment. And so how do we get there? And then effective feedback is really given in a time of learning when there's still time to act on it. So when we think about that, feedback can be written comments. Now that we're using Canvas, they'd be more electronic, meetings with our students, giving them opportunities to get suggestions from peers. And we talk about effective feedback, and we say it needs to happen at the time of learning. An example of this would be making sure that we're providing feedback throughout the process of students working on projects, working on assignments, as opposed to only providing that feedback at the end, because it's not going to be effective if we give them a final grade. Yes, we can give them feedback about how they can improve, but they don't have that opportunity to improve because the final grade has already been given and decided. So an example of this in your course would be maybe before a project or an assignment is due, having like a kind of a checkpoint where students turn in what work they have at that point, and you can go through and provide them feedback, encourage them, give suggestions for improvement. That's how you can handle that. Or you could use peer review. So just making sure it's something that is before that final grade is due. And so when we think about feedback, one of the things that we really tie to is John Hattie. And so John Hattie is a researcher, and he was really passionate about instructors looking at learning from the lens of the student. And so he went through and he started looking at ways to increase what's called visible learning. And so these opportunities essentially focused on ways that we can make learning better for our students and ultimately become better teachers, because we understand what our students are looking for and need. And so a part of that research was looking at feedback. And so feedback was a big part of that effective learning because it helped students understand the subject. It gave them clear guidance on how to improve their learning. And it also went into more details about how we can provide that feedback to our students so it's more valuable. So it really took a look at partnering with your students as well to make sure that it was truly effective. We all learn completely different ways. We all want feedback to come in different ways. And so that visible learning research kind of dives deeper into that. And so when we think about ways that we have provided feedback, so think about when we were still kind of using pen and paper, right? You'd use the red pen and mark up on the student's work what was correct or what was incorrect. Those are the specific ways that we did that. So think about how you have provided feedback in your traditional classroom. So outside of Canvas, what were some ways that you provided feedback to your students? Verbal discussions, great. I would say for me, I definitely gave my students the paper marked up and gave them the opportunity to come to office hours, so similar. Peer reviewed activities, perfect. Track changes in Word, rubrics, perfect. Providing good examples of good assignments. That's awesome. And you can absolutely do all these things in the digital environment. And we'll walk through how that works in Canvas. Handwritten comments, written general feedback to students. Good. Awesome. So now that we're in a digital world, we want to focus on how we can give feedback digitally. So technology really helps empower us to connect with our students on an individual basis. And it also creates a kind of a repository. What's great about Canvas in general is that when students turn something in and you provide that feedback or comments, students can go back later and look at that. They can go back as many times as they need to. You're no longer relying on remembering what was said in a verbal discussion. They're no longer relying on keeping that hard copy of that marked up paper. Everything is going to be delivered in a digital manner. And so when we talk about feedback, these are some principles of what feedback should be. So feedback needs to be goal oriented. So someone provided the example, I think it was Christine, of using rubrics. So rubrics let students know what the expectations are and what the goals are in order to get full credit for those specific pieces of your rubric. It needs to be prioritized. So feedback needs to be given at a time where students can action on it. And again, actionable. So making sure if you're giving that feedback that it's very specific so they know, okay, these are some things I need to do better. So an example for me is, of course, you can say good job, but what was great about it, right? What are some ways that you could expand on this? Or if you say, I'm not sure what you're asking, ask them some leading questions so they can know how to dive deeper into that. Make sure it's student friendly. And so student friendly is one of those things where we want to make sure that it's just clear and straight to the point. You can write as much feedback as you want, but we want to make sure that students are actually going to read it and take action on it. So make it as clear and straight to the point as possible. Also make sure that it's ongoing, consistent, and timely. So as instructors, for feedback to work, we also have to hold ourselves accountable, just like we hold our students accountable to turning things in on a specific time. We also have to give ourselves that same guidance and make sure that we're providing the feedback very consistently on an ongoing basis that is timely enough for them to kind of meet that actionable area. So one of the examples of providing feedback is a method that I've recently learned that I really like. It's called Glow and Grow feedback. So it's easy, it makes it easy for teachers to meet these criteria when providing feedback to their students. So the GLOW portion of this is where you provide positive feedback to help build that student's confidence. And I believe someone said to encourage them, I think that was Christine, and give them an understanding of what quality looks like. So go deeper into and say you did an excellent job at, and write specifically what they did well at. The strongest part of your work is. And so there's a lot of different kind of leading sentences that you can use, but you want to make sure it's specific about what's really great about this. What are things that are going well? And the growth side of that feedback is more of the constructive side. And this is when you take a direct role in helping your students improve their work. And this is where we make sure it's very specific and it's very actionable. So I'm confused about, and then elaborate, what is it that you're confused about? But also give your students guidance on, this is how I think, here are some examples on how you could approach this portion of the project or assignment or paper. One suggestion I have, that's another one, a question I have. And so there's multiple ways that you can kind of use this. So I'm going to pop a link in the chat. And this link has some kind of glow and grow sentence starters. Now, this is geared towards kind of, it says elementary, but they're still really great sentence structures for you to kind of start that glow and grow feedback process. You also can absolutely use this inside of discussions, as a guidance for your students to understand how to provide feedback and how to construct it in a way that is helpful, consistent, actionable, all of those things that we talked about that feedback should be. So I'm going to pause really quickly just to see if we have any questions or thoughts about that before we dive deeper into Canvas tools for providing feedback. All right. Perfect. Sure. The do's and don'ts. Yeah. So the question was, can we go over the do's and don'ts on the previous slide? Sure. So make sure that you target the task and you don't target their identity. So the targeting the task is basically similar to what I talked about in that glow and grow feedback, is saying you've done an excellent job of supporting your argument with evidence from the text, instead of saying you're such a good analytical thinker. So we want to be specific and target what the goal of that particular project or assignment is, as opposed to giving them encouraging words of their character. I mean, that's important, but we want to make sure it's specific to that assignment. Making sure you're specific and not vague. And so, one thing that was really good, one question I have. So we want to remove ourselves from the feedback of just saying, oh, great job. What did they do a great job at? Or needs improvement. What exactly needs improvement? And how can I improve? What are some options for me to improve portions of this assignment or this project? Make sure you provide feedback often, and instead of expecting your students to figure it out on their own. So again, that would be allowing them to turn in the assignment like before it's the final submission is due. And you could do 1 or 2 drafts, like it could be turn in a draft and then the final project, or maybe turn in 2 drafts and then the final project. With that would allow you to get in front of it to make sure students understand the project or the task goal, because sometimes students may not understand and they don't know that they don't understand until you get that final project and it's like, this was not the expectation, this is not what I was looking for. And you also can provide rubrics as well, but that still will help make sure that they're on track, providing the rubric and then giving that first draft just to reinforce that they understand what the goal of the project is. And then focus on the project instead of the results. So results is just solely the grade, but we really want to make sure that our students are able to articulate what they're learning and they understand why they're doing the project or assignment and how they can actually use this. And so that's where that goes on, focusing on the process as opposed to the grade. The grade is important, but if they can't articulate their understanding outside of just getting, that assignment or that quiz or whatever it is done, then is it really, specific and targeted feedback? Probably not. Okay. And did that help, Christine? Any other questions on the do's and don'ts?
I have a question. This is Nasheen. My question is, by providing this kind of feedback requires a lot of time on the faculty. Where does one find that kind of time to go over assignments, 2 or 3 times for each student? And if you're teaching multiple classes, I'm not sure if I can ever find that kind of time.
Sure. So what you can do is if you feel like it's going to be challenging to find that time for you to do it, then you can absolutely do peer reviews. But if you're going to do peer reviews, or even if you're going to do a draft review before, it's going to need to be built in as an assignment in your course. It doesn't have to necessarily be for grade. But if you build it in as an assignment, then it makes it actionable from the student side. And it could just be something that's more extra credit, and you can allow them to, if they want to turn it in and get the feedback, it could be something that's a choice. If it's peer review, you can absolutely make that a part of the grade. Making sure that you could also do this in class, or if it's an online course, you could do it via video, just walking through the rubric and the expectations to make sure they're clear and giving your students the opportunity to connect with you. But we want to make sure that we're not putting so much on the students that we're not providing that for them. So if you can build this into your course structure, then I'd encourage you to do that. It will take a little bit of work, but I think overall, it's going to be something that's more positive than a negative impact. And I see a couple things in the chat about giving advice when a paper is very poor, many things are wrong with it. In a situation like that, I would definitely use, instead of written feedback, I might use the video option, and I'll show you this in Canvas in just a moment, to go through and give them more detailed information about what things are wrong and how they need to be improved. And then that, to me, that also is a situation where I would try to meet with the student, try to get some time if you have office hours, or if you have availability, to kind of meet with them virtually via Zoom or Teams or face-to-face to dive deeper into how they can improve it. And you absolutely, Christine, can rely on your rubric and just go through the line items. If it's poorly written, just show them, hey, this is what the expectation is, and this is kind of where you are, and this is how you can improve it. Any other thoughts or questions? So let's take a look at some tools that you can use in Canvas for feedback, and then we can definitely get into more specific examples as we're going through this as well. So one of the things that we can use for feedback is rubrics. You've likely used rubrics in some capacity, whether it was in your previous learning management system, or if you've used it for handwritten papers. But rubrics really help students understand the expectations. It shows them how you will score their submissions. You cannot use rubrics in Canvas as scoring. Basically, you can use it to click in and give the student a grade, or it could be a non-scoring rubric where you're just informing them of what the expectation is and how they will be graded. Rubrics in Canvas can be added to assignments, discussions, and quizzes. And what's great is once you create a rubric once in Canvas, it's attached to you as a user, and you can use it in any of your other courses. So you really only have to do the setup process once, and then you can easily use it in your other courses. Now, we don't have the option to import rubrics, so it will require you to go in and build it. But once you do it once, it's done. And so all you'll do is you can either pre-build rubrics by going into your Canvas course and go into rubrics in your course navigation and adding it there. Once you add in a rubric, you can start adding in criteria, what exactly is this criterion? You can customize the ratings, how many points they're worth, the descriptions of the information on the rubrics. So I'm going to take a moment really quick and go into my Canvas course just to show you how to access it, and then also how you can add it to assignments as well as discussions. So I'm going to go in. Okay. And while that's opening, give that a moment to open. While that's opening, so one of the things that's really great about rubrics in Canvas is that you have the ability to leave feedback for each specific criterion when you go in and grade. You have the ability to create duplicate copies of a rubric. So if you have a rubric and you want to make a change to it, you can duplicate it and make that change elsewhere. Christine, so there's no way to import rubrics from Beachboard into Canvas. The courses are being migrated, but I don't think the rubrics are going to come through. You will have to rebuild those. It depends on how the courses have been migrated. Some of your rubrics might already be there. The one way to check is inside of your course. Hang on one second. If you go into your course, click on rubrics and see if there's anything there. But there's not like an import tool to import rubrics in. So if you're thinking about adding a rubric to an assignment, if you click on the name of the assignment, at the bottom left, you'll see this option to add in a rubric. So when you add in the rubric, this will allow you to start building it up, putting in your criterion, determining how the scoring is going to look like. Just bear with me one second, having some tech difficulties bringing up this course. You also have the ability to find rubrics. So whenever you've built your first rubric, if you're ready to use that rubric on different Canvas courses, then you would come in and click find rubric, and this would find all of the rubrics that have been imported or added in. So I would take a look at that as well. So that might be where some of your rubrics came in from Beachboard. Have you had a chance to go into one of your migrated courses, Christine, or one of your courses that came in from Beachboard, basically? Okay, so I would go in there, click on rubrics and see, you know, exactly if there are any in there just at the moment. All right, and I finally have a course available to show you. Okay, so if you go into Canvas and you click on rubrics, this is going to be kind of like your rubrics library for that particular course. So you can see I have a couple of them here. But if I click on add rubric, it's going to automatically come up with that name of some rubric. You can absolutely change it. And then here's where you'll start to put in the criterion. So you put in a description. So if it's like grammar, then you can put in more specifics about what exactly will be assessed in that particular criterion. You have your ratings and you can add additional ones as needed. You can change the title. So it just says full marks or no marks. You can either do like exceeds, meets, doesn't meet, whatever descriptors you want to use for that particular rubric criterion, you absolutely can add in. You also have the ability to add in additional criterion. So you can make your rubrics as in-depth as they need to be or as simplified. Just depends on, you know, what that course is and how you want to, you know, essentially tackle that. You also have the ability when you click in, add in the criterion to duplicate a row. So if you already have a structure set up that you like, you can click duplicate a row and then it will, you know, add that in and you can go in and edit and make changes. And so you can add your rubrics here. Another way you can add it is if you go into assignments. Once you've created an assignment, just click on the name, and I'm going to just delete this off really quick. And you'll see this option that says plus rubric. So you can build from here, or you can click find rubric to find one that you've previously built. And then down here, there's a number of different settings and options for this rubric. Essentially, basically, how are you going to use it when you go in to grade your student? The main thing is to make sure you click use this rubric for assignment grading, because this will allow you to click on the rubric and actually it will populate the grade and add it up as you click on the different scoring for the different ratings. If you want to add rubrics to discussions, it needs to be a graded discussion. So when you set up the discussion board, you go in and you need to make sure that you choose this checkbox for graded. And then once you've done all those settings, when you click on the discussion, you'll click the three dots and you'll see show or add rubric. This one already has a rubric on it. So I'd click add rubric and you'd have that same option to either find a rubric or start building directly from this screen. As far as quizzes, you can add rubrics on classic quizzes as well. And so this would be something you would do is if you have a quiz and maybe you have an essay question on there and you want to give students guidance on how you're going to grade that essay or that short answer question. So you'll click that option, the three dots next to it, and click add rubric, and it'll be the same thing. You can add on the rubric there and set it up for your students to see the expectation. So I'm just going to pause just to see, are there any questions about using rubrics in Canvas? And feel free to unmute yourself if that's easier. Different types of rubrics. Yeah, you absolutely. If you wanted to, when you build a rubric, and let me see, let me go into here really quick. Let me go into an assignment. So when you add a rubric, one of the options is I'll write free form comments when assessing the students. So instead of having those different ratings with the points connected to it, you could put I'll write free form comments. And so you'll just put the description or that criterion. And then when you go into SpeedGrader, you can absolutely write free form comments and then determine how many points the student gets. Is that what you're looking for, Christine? Did that answer your question?
No, I was actually wondering, there's the kind of rubrics where it says like an A is this, a B is this, a C is this, versus the ones that say do this, this, and this, and points are assigned to it. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Beachboard has, I think they call it, and one is analytic, that where you have specific points for specific criteria. And then holistic is where you just give them like an A, B, or C with if they meet a list of criteria. So I was just wondering if Canvas had that too.
We do not.
Okay.
It's going to be, yeah, more analytical than holistic. If you're looking for something like that, then you could build your rubric criterion in that way, where the criterion is like A, and you could put everything that they're going to, the expectations are to get an A or the full credit of points, and then B, C, D, and F. You could create it in that way, and absolutely go in and just click the box or put in the manual grade. But there's not an option to do that, separately in the way that you're talking about for Beachboard.
So you would just, instead of criteria, you would just put A there, and then what the rating meant, and then that's worth 95 points or whatever it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you could make one. You just, there's not two. How do I say it? You could make one through it, just kind of tricking it, I guess, by putting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we don't have the option to have two different versions, or I guess views of a rubric. I think that's what it would be. Yeah.
There isn't a template for it, basically. Yeah. Okay.
No.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And then if you want to see, let me see, I think I have an assignment here. You also can do ranges as well. So it doesn't have to be exact points. So if you wanted to do a range, here's an example of a rubric I have. And so whenever you attach a rubric to an assignment, this is an example of a file upload assignment. Student has uploaded it. I can come and click view rubric. And so I have the ratings. And so as I click through, it automatically populates the points and calculates the score. You can click the comment box to leave specific comments for that particular criterion. If you do that option where I said free form comments, it'll remove these ratings away and you'll just see the comment box and you'll put in the grade here. So if Christine, in that example that kind of we were talking about, it could be that this was like A, and then we would just make this 95 points or 100, whatever, full credit is. And then you could provide the comments here about what the students did really well. And if they missed any points, why. And then you would just make the other ones 0 points. So if it's A, give them full points. And then the other ones, you'd give them 0 points to do that kind of holistic example you're talking about. So that's rubrics. The next thing is, let's take a look at speed graders since we're in here and talk about some of the other tools that we have available for you to provide feedback. So speed grader is going to be basically the place you go to view students' work and to see what they've turned in and provide them feedback. So I'm going to step back one just so you can see exactly how to get to speed grader. So you can get to it from the grade book, or you can get to it from that assignment or discussion page. So if you're on an assignment, you'll just click on the name of it and you'll see speed grader there on the right-hand side. If you go to the grade book, let me just go there. In Canvas, whenever you create a graded assignment, discussion, or quiz, it automatically creates a column inside of the Canvas gradebook. So if you want to go and see speed grader for a particular assignment, go to the column with that assignment name, click the 3 dots and choose speed grader. So those are 2 different ways that you can get to this tool. And so this is an example of an assignment where a student uploaded a file. And you'll see up here, I have this toolbar. This is called the annotation toolbar. And this allows me to mark up that student work. So very similar to pen and paper and that traditional feedback. If you like that, you can absolutely do that inside of SpeedGrader. So there's a number of different tools here. So there is this little comment balloon, and you can make this toolbar bigger or smaller. So if I click somewhere in the paper, I will put a little icon next to it and I can leave that specific feedback for that particular section. Or you can use the highlight feature and highlight, let's say if we wanted to highlight this entire paragraph, highlight it, and then again, you'll see that option to leave feedback for it. You also have this pen tool to where you can circle things or highlight or underline, however you want to use it. You can use that tool to provide feedback. And I've seen some instructors, if you have like a tablet or like an Apple Pencil or something like that, you could mark it up using that tool and provide the feedback there as well. And you'll see as you click on these different tools, there'll be different colors. Like for this one, we can change the line thickness. We also have the ability to click on here and leave text directly inside of that document, and we can change the size of the text, the color. So you have the option to come in and customize it as you need to. So that's one option. That's the annotation tool. In order for this to show up, when you create an assignment, you do have to go in and make sure it's a file upload assignment for this toolbar to show up. We talked about rubrics, so you have your rubrics there if you want to use it. You also have what's called your comments right here. So you can come in and type in very specific comments. And I know there was an instructor that was concerned about the time that it would take to provide this type of feedback, building it into your coursework, or building it into your schedule essentially. So there's a couple of tools in here that will allow it to make it a little bit quicker. So here, the first thing we have is the speech recognition tool. So if you click record, and you'll see just a moment, you can dictate your comments out. So you can sit there and dictate it. Once you're done, click stop, and it'll populate into this box. And this will allow you to see it said dictate, spelled dictate incorrectly, or it maybe didn't catch the words that I was saying. You can update them, and then you'll click submit, and that'll attach as a comment to your students. We also have the video or audio feedback, so you can record a video and leave feedback to students in that way. Or you can do an audio comment, so whatever you're comfortable with, or if you've downloaded or done it somewhere else, you can upload that video or audio feedback. All submissions like this, if you click on this hyperlink, this will allow you to download the document. And so I know some instructors prefer to use like the markup tool in Microsoft Word. And then you can use that, you could use that tool. And then Paul, to your question about does the assignment tool support pre-written or frequent comments? It wouldn't be in the assignment tool. It's actually going to be, let me go into this one, what's called the comment library. And so once it loads, I'll show you how you can pre-populate that. But the comment library allows you to go in and basically add in comments that you know you're going to say quite often. Let me see if I have an image of that. Well, for some reason it's not working on mine, but there's going to be a little comment icon that shows up here, and you can click on that and you can build up your library with frequently used comments. And the comment library is attached to you as a user, so you have the ability to use that in any of your Canvas courses. So once you go in and build it out, yeah, and it's blank when it comes, but you can build it with whatever you need. Okay. You also have, you can add in emojis if you wanted to. The third option is going to be this attachment. So if you wanted to upload, let's just say you downloaded the student submission and did markup in Word, you can attach that marked up version, or you can attach a rubric or attach documents, whatever you want to provide feedback for students. Okay. Any questions about this annotation tool, using the rubrics or the comment library or any of these different feedback options? So just taking a look at this, and let me know in the chat, which of these tools do you think you're going to use or start to use? And it may not be for this semester, because I know we're much further into the semester, maybe for next semester. Is it going to be the comment library? Are you thinking about using video or audio feedback? Using rubrics, this annotation tool? Let me know in the chat. And I see someone has their hand raised. So go ahead, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
So the question I have is actually a follow-up from the question that was just asked. So if I were to do this, if I allow them to upload a draft assignment and I make comments, right? And then comes time for the final assignment. So is there a way to keep to see the trail? Like, yes, these are the comments that were made. Were they adopted? Were they incorporated?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you would do is when you set up your assignment, and let me just go to an assignment really quick. When you set up your assignment under submission attempts, leave it to unlimited. So this would allow the students to turn in the assignment multiple times to that same assignment column, or that same area, basically, so you could see every version that was submitted in one place. And what happens is each time a student turns in an assignment, there'll be a little drop down here and you can see the date and timestamp, and that way you can keep track of it. So basically you would open up that final assignment early and allow them to keep submitting to that same submission. And then you'd have a date and timestamp, and you could toggle between to see what feedback you left previously. It's always going to show you the most recent submission, but you could toggle back to previous submissions and see what were your comments, and then see if the student has applied those or not.
Okay, thank you.
That's
That was
probably
good.
the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. And it looks like a lot of people have a liking to the comment library. Awesome. Yeah, rubrics, I will be honest with you. And this is from an instructor side of me, not me working just for Canvas. Rubrics do take some time to build in Canvas, but you only have to do it once and then it's done. So I think that it's worth the time to build it out because it really does go a long way with helping set those expectations for your students. So they know exactly what you're going to be looking for when you're grading them, and they can also ask you questions ahead of time so that when you go and grade, you're not getting that back and forth from students about why did I get points off from this, whatever the situation is. But it does make things a whole lot easier, I promise you, adding in rubrics, especially when you're going into grade, because you can just simply, click the rubric and your criterion is there. You can say yes, yes, and then give them comments if you've taken off points or give them comments about why they did get full points. Any other thoughts or any other questions about providing feedback with the comment library, the rubrics, or the annotation tool? Okay. Perfect. And the last thing we're going to take a look at is the Canvas gradebook. So the Canvas gradebook also has some really great items built into it as well. Obviously, the gradebook stores all the information about the student progress in the course. When students click on grades, they get to see their own individual progress in the course. They can access the assignments or quizzes or discussions and see their results, as well as the feedback from their version of clicking grades. And like I said before, whenever you create an assignment, a graded discussion, or a quiz, a column is already created or automatically created in the gradebook for you to go in and either enter the grade or access SpeedGrader to take a look at that assignment and provide feedback. But I wanted to show you a couple different things that you can also do with the gradebook as well. Once it pops up. Okay, awesome. Okay, so by default, it's obviously going to show you your students' names in alphabetical order. If you click the three dots, you can change the sort if you want it sorted in a different way. You also have the ability to search by assignments. You can apply filters and search by a specific module, or if you have assignment groups set up, you can filter in that way. So you can customize this view in any way that you need to. One thing I'd like to show everyone, that's kind of one of my favorite things, is if you click the three dots next to the name of the assignment, you'll see a couple different things pop up. So I can change the sort, I can get into SpeedGrader, but I like this option here called Message Students Who. And this allows me to pull up a list of criteria to send a message to a group of students. So in this example, I have 4 different options. I can send a message to students who have not yet submitted this assignment, students who I haven't graded yet, or students who scored more or less than a specific amount. And so if you do students who have not submitted, it'll automatically pull a list of students who haven't submitted this assignment. And you'll see that there's a subject and a message here. This will allow you to send a mass email to all these students. They will be BCC'd, so they will all get their own individual copy. They will not know anyone else received this message or anything like that. And you can customize the subject and put in the message here. This message goes to the Canvas inbox, but by default, the way, unless this is turned off, all users will get a copy of that message inside of their email. So whatever email you have attached to Canvas, you'll get a copy of that inbox message there as well. And you can reply from directly in your email, or you can come back into Canvas and reply using the inbox feature. But so this is one thing I really like. You also have the option to set a default grade. So if it's an assignment that, let's just say this one, I'm going to do set default grade. and I want to give everybody 5 points because I said I'm going to give everyone 3 points of extra credit, right? Everyone did this, they participated. I want the entire class to get 5 points for this particular assignment. So I'm going to put in 5 points, and I'm going to put overwrite already written grades because maybe I've already given everyone the full points. Now they're going to get the extra credit on top of that. And I'll click set default grade. And you can use this for participation or, you know, something where everyone's going to get like the same amount of points. And as you see, it automatically pre-populated that in. So that's, to me, a really great time saver. You also have the option to export the gradebook. So if you need to get a CSV version of the gradebook and you want to export it out, you can get that as well. And let's see, and I see one hand raised, but I just want to show you 2 different things. You'll see that there is this little eye with a line on it, and that's what's called the grade posting policy. So by default, whenever you enter a grade, entering comments or feedback in Canvas, students are automatically notified. Now, that typically is great, but we know sometimes, especially if it's an assignment where we're talking about you're providing that feedback, it may take some time for you to get through all 30 to 50 of your students. So the grade posting policy allows you to go through grade, give comments and feedback, and then you can kind of reveal those results to everyone at one time, basically post their grades, comments, and feedback at one time by applying a grade posting policy. So you can do this for your entire gradebook or on a per assignment basis. And you'll just go to the 3 dots and click grade posting policy, and this will allow you to turn it on or off for that particular assignment. All right, so I see 2 hands that have been raised. And I hope I don't butcher your name. Is it Nasheen? I saw that name first.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Can you, Deshira, show again where you're adding, say, a 5-point additional, giving them extra points?
Mhm.
So if say, for example, I'm adding 5 additional, so some had 10, some had 15 on it. Can you just show me if actually it adds to it or it just replaces it?
It's going to replace it. So if you want to, the default grade would be if everyone's going to get the same grade, right? So in the example I used, everyone's going to get 5 points instead of 2. This would be, it's just going to replace the grade that was there. If you just need to add in additional points, like, then you can just click, like, let's just say here, the student is going to get 50 points.
Yeah.
Because everyone's getting an additional 10 and this one's going to have 70. You can just click into it and enter it that way.
Oh, it's manual then.
It's manual, but you can do, you could export it. Well, it's going to be manual either way. So either click it in here or you could export it and do it in a CSV.
Okay. That's, I wasn't sure how that was done. Thanks.
You're welcome. And then I see another hand raised. I just see CET. If that person wants to unmute.
Okay, I must not have my name on there. So 2 questions. With the previous course management system, I could display in the gradebook both the overall percentage and the total points. And it looked like Canvas was wanting me to choose one or the other, but not both. Is there a way that I can have both?
Unfortunately, no. So it'll have to be the point. Whenever you set up the assignment, you'll choose how the points display, and it could be points or percentage, but it cannot be both. The only thing you can do is like here in my total column, you do have the option to change it from points to percentage. That would be the only option, but on a per assignment basis, you would have to choose.
Well, for the overall total?
For the overall total, you can change it to either points or percentage.
Okay, one or the other, but not both.
Correct.
And I can't have two overall totals. One
Correct.
showing, oh, okay. That seems like an easy fix. I mean, that seems like an easy thing to fix. So that's a suggestion to allow both. I mean, it's just it's so easy, and to me, it's useful to have both items. The other thing, a question back to rubrics, it looked to me like if I am using rubrics and rubrics have points, the rubrics will compute a total. but then the total won't be populated into the box for the score. It needs to be retyped.
No,
So, okay,
it will. If you choose, whenever you're creating the rubric, that option to use points for criterion scoring, once you go into the rubric, and let me see if I have, let's go into this one.
okay, so it's just a setting I'm missing to do that.
So if you, well, not there, I didn't want to click there. Hang on, let me get back to the rubric. So on the rubric, if you check this use assignment for rubric grading, once you go through and I'll show you this. It's on one of these assignments. You have to choose that. So when you click save, after you've clicked all the points on the rubric, it will populate into that box. So if I have that turned on, and I'm just going to quickly grade this, you see it's 70 points, and then it automatically populates it into that box.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, so it does do that, and I think that it probably should be on by default. I'll give you that, but you do have to check that.
Yeah.
Before. And it's because sometimes rubrics are just there for not scoring purposes. It could just be there for informational purposes, but I would vote to say it should be default.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions that I can answer on Gradebook or anything like that? The last thing I want to quickly show you is we also have the option to do peer reviews in Canvas. And so peer reviews would basically pair up your students with one another to provide feedback on an assignment that they've turned in. You can absolutely upload rubrics as well for peer review assignments for your students to use to provide feedback. So when you're setting up assignments, there'll be an option that says require peer reviews. Once you click that box, it's going to ask you, how would you like Canvas to handle it? Do you want to manually pair your students up, or would you like Canvas to automatically pair students up? If you choose automatic, you'll need to let the system know how many peer reviews does the student need to do. Typically it's 1. If it's 2, then you'll put 2 into this box. And then this here is, when would you like to assign that particular peer review? Like, when will they get a copy of the other student's work that they're paired up with? For peer reviews to work, students have to turn things in. So students cannot be paired up until they, have turned something in. And that's a guidance. You need to make sure your students understand that they need to turn things in on time for this process to work. You also can make it anonymous. Now, with this option here, keep in mind that if a student puts a header, footer, or cover page, Canvas cannot take that out. So if you're going to use this option, just make sure you give students guidance to not put any of those elements on, so it's truly an anonymous peer review. But peer reviews are great. Once you've done that, you'll click save, and then you'll see speed grader, and then underneath you'll see peer reviews. And this is where you can either assign or go see where students are assigned to each other. From the student side, they will get a notification on their to-do list. So it'll say peer review for whatever that assignment is. You also can do peer reviews on discussions. So they'll get that on their to-do list, and they'll click into it. They will see the student's work, and then they can start to use the comment feature to provide feedback. And if you click show rubric from the student side, they'll be able to see that rubric as well as guidance to help provide, that targeted and specific feedback. Peer reviews are not going to be instant. So if I turn in something, I'm not going to automatically be paired with someone. It may take up to an hour. So that's also something to keep in mind to let your students know. But I think overall peer reviews work really well. Inside of SpeedGrader, you'll get to see the comments that a student received on their particular work. So if you're looking at maybe adding in a peer review component, then I would try this out in your Canvas courses as well. So we're almost up against time. So I'm going to pause just to see if there's any final questions before we wrap up.
I had one more.
Sure.
Well, one thing I used to use for feedback was surveys. it looked like there's no specific survey type in Canvas, and there's no specific type for Likert style questions. That led me to think, well, I'll make up my own Likert style question. But then in the old quizzes, there's no way to copy and paste questions very user-friendly, although there is in new quizzes. So then I moved to new quizzes where I could copy and paste easily, but then there's no icon for, there's no setting for surveys that get points all or nothing. It wants to grade items, but in a survey, I don't really grade items. So this is where I'm coming from, is I'm trying to make surveys with the resources that I have, and just wondered what your thoughts are on that goal.
So you can absolutely use classic quizzes for surveys. Unfortunately, that's not going to be something that is going to be available on new quizzes. That feature is not going to be there once classic quizzes is sunsetted. So you could, use them for now. That they're not going to be sunsetted until June 2024. So you have some time before that happens, and it's possible that additional options may be added to new quizzes that may help kind of meet that standard. The other option is to use maybe a Google form or like some type of separate third-party survey tool, like what is it, Qualtrics or something like that, or SurveyMonkey. Those are other options to do it. But right now, we don't have anything natively built in that would get you that with new quizzes.
Okay, thank you.
And Paul, yes, peer review assigning takes about an hour to process. Yes, if you do the automatically assign, you can always keep it manual and go in and assign students to one another. You're welcome. I'll be sharing the session and then some resources. This will come from your instructional design department. So they'll have all of that information available, as well as the links that we shared, that I shared earlier in the session. So, all right. Well, it was great to meet you all today. We have a couple other sessions coming up. We have a session on, let's see. And if you need to go, absolutely go. We have a session tomorrow, and it's going to be headed by Paula, who's here, and she's going to be talking about increasing collaboration in Canvas. And that one will be tomorrow at 11:30. Wonderful. Awesome. Well, I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and you walked away learning a couple of things that you'll add into your Canvas courses. Awesome. Bye.